والآن مع محاضرة بعنوان الدفع بتحولين متلازمين، تنفيذ شراكات ثابتة ومرنة بين القطاعين العام والخاص، وتطوير البنية التحتية المستدامة من أجل المستقبل. يقدمها الدكتور أيوب فورال أيدين، رئيس مجلس الإدارة مركز التميز لمشروعات الشراكة في إسطنبول الجمهورية التركية، فليتفضل مشكورا إلى المنصة.
Yeah, good afternoon again. I think it is a difficult, session for me before the lunch. Now I am the person who is between the lunch and the last session. So sorry about it. I would like to very fast on it. Turkey is a different level of expertise. Mostly we have the giant PPP projects. We are talking, if you are talking PPP in Turkey, it means that you are talking more than $500 million giant projects. So we have lots of PPP projects, but unfortunately we don't have small scale PPP project, less than $100 million, because we don't have the legal framework for municipalities or local governments or small scale PPP projects. So mostly the projects I would like to share with you today are the giant projects, but it means, which is good from other perspective, that we have lots of lessons learned from the big and the giant steps. It started 90s with the electricity distribution, which was the easiest way. It's like a PPA, but also it is including design, build, and operate of the electricity plants. And it was started at least working the culture of working with the private partners with the governments. Used to deliver infrastructure amid fiscal constraints, which is very important also, the incentives to attract the financial associations, IFIs. And this is good. Turkey is a very good model for the emerging economies, especially for the region and for the CIS countries. There is a problem. Okay, here. These are the numbers you can see. Overall, now the total number of projects so far reached 272, and the investment amount reached $102 billion. Mostly this $102 billion in the last 20 years, especially transportation, healthcare, energy, and education. Mostly more than half of Turkish PPP projects are at the transportation projects, airports. Just only Istanbul, maybe most of you knows about it. Istanbul Grand Airport is about 10 billion euros, and hospitals, highways, bridges. So the $62 billion transportation, $22 billion healthcare. So these are the numbers. A couple of projects I would like to share with you. This is one of the motorway projects, highway, which is connecting Istanbul and Ankara, two big cities. One is the capital of Turkey, and the other one is the capital of economy of Turkey. So you can see it's around $2.2 billion project. And what is the importance point of this project? It's 400 kilometers, but the duration, the construction is 2.5 years, which is amazing. It's not easy to handle, to manage 400 kilometers in 2.5 years. And this is Istanbul Grand Airport. It's the first phase is 10 billion euros. And what is the successful part of Istanbul Grand Airport is now it's less than 5 years operation and reached the 90 million passengers annually. So it means that now the private sector should invest for the second phase, which reached the passengers volume to the 200 million annually. But also I would like to say something about Istanbul Grand Airport. It was also a difficult project in terms of the construction, but it was an easy project because the first airport of Istanbul, Atatürk Airport, we closed one airport and we opened the second one, so there is no demand risk. So just a minute. I cannot manage it. Yes. Okay. These are some flagships I told them about. This is Eurasia Tunnel. In the morning, I tried to explain a couple of things about Eurasia Tunnel, which is under the Bosphorus, under the sea, 100 meters from the sea, which is connecting Asia and Europe. And it's also the construction 3 years, so it's approximately 4 years, $1.2 billion project. And daily 90,000 passengers are using this tunnel in Istanbul, so which is also a very important project. In terms of the philosophy of the project, it means it's a project for the current demand. There is a demand also in Istanbul. A traffic congestion is the most important problem in Istanbul. So this is a very good solution from the decision makers. And this is the third bridge, which is connectivity. So this is also a $3 billion project. The important part of this project is the contract duration, 10 years. You can see $3 billion projects. It's hand over to the government just in 10 years, including the construction. It's nearly impossible to make such kind of giant projects in a short period of time. This is another one, highway and airport. These are some pictures I would like to show you. This is Çanakkale Bridge, 3.1 billion euros and 16 years, including construction. Construction was 5 years, and most of them are giant projects. And this is also very important. Hospitals, PPP healthcare services. In 10 years, Turkish government decided to build new hospitals, PPP hospitals. Approximately 20,000 beds they renovated. And these are PPP hospitals all around the Turkey, not just in Istanbul, it's Ankara. But we have 18 different PPP hospitals, approximately 20 beds, new innovated beds. Which models Turkey use? BOT, BLT. BLT is very important for the healthcare services. BOT, as you can guess it very easily, is a transportation, build, operate and transfer for highway, tunnel, bridges projects. And BLT are for healthcare. What it means, why the government use BLT? Because the services, 19 different services, medical and non-medical services, belongs to the private sector, but the doctors and the medical services and the nurses belongs to the government. So it's like a leasing of the services. Non-medical medical services are leasing from the private sector, but the major medical services handling by the government. So it's a BLT. And as the Egyptian experience, all the assets, the ownership assets belongs to the government, not the private sector. Yes, some examples. Again, in the morning I try to explain some replication benchmark is very critical, but also very challenging. In United Kingdom, it was started 1997 with Tony Blair, the PFI. It was a finance of public services at that time. And when the Tony Blair decided to go as a Labour Party president and the Prime Minister of the UK, decided to go to private finance, he told, okay, I cannot leave my society living with the Victorian assets and the buildings, so we need a new assets, new public services, we need the money. So it was a PFI, private finance initiatives. So from the UK experience, it's a financial tools. But today in Turkey, maybe in Egypt as well, this is not just a financial tools. PPP is not just finding proper finance, but also improving, developing the public services. So sometimes we are doing a benchmark, it's very challenging. I would like to also share my experience. It was 2007. The modern Turkish PPP journey started with the healthcare. Minister of Healthcare decided to have new PPP hospitals, but at that time, no experience, no knowledge. Even the public servants didn't know about the PPP, the definition and the abbreviation. So the line minister decided to go to the UK and learn what is PPP, how we can develop that hospitals. And after 6 months, I was one of the members of this team. And after 6 months, we came to the Turkey and we tried to develop our own in-house contracts, management process, PPP tender documents. But after 1.5 years, we understood that all agreements that we got from the UK was very localized. And those were not proper for the local needs and local resources. So it should be in-house developed. Maybe 60% of the agreement and the tender process changed in-house. So maybe we can say in 4 years, we started to tender. So I think benchmark is a very crucial and very challenging step. So key attraction of Turkish PPP program. One is very important, as I think engineer Atter finalized and concluded his speech, like an FX, inflation and interest rate adjustment, which is very important in our economies. I mean, which is based on hard currency, means that we need a foreign direct investment for PPP projects. So it means that the investors bring their money, even it's euro or dollars. So they want the same one, not the local one. If they bring a euro, they want euro. If they bring a dollars, they want a dollars. So we should adjust. We should align the FX currency and the interest rates currency, which is very important. So all the Turkish PPP guarantees based on hard currency, not the local one. Variation orders, it was very important, 1% to 20%, because when you design, first design of your projects as a construction, you can understand that you need, during the construction period, you need more something, because it was not, you cannot, it is not easy to reach the perfect design in the beginning. So in public services, you can understand you should change some part of your construction. It is not easy from the legal framework, because if it is more than 20%, it means maybe you should go a new tender. So why you are increasing the work completion all the time? So it was, but in the beginning it was very important, 1 to 20% increase, and variation order was allowed with the ministries. Market testing for services every 5 years. This is also very important for healthcare, not the transportation. This is important. Why? Because the innovation, changes, and challenging are different for healthcare. This is a social service, and the government should, adjust, align their public services due to the needs, increasing of needs and changing nature of the needs. So in healthcare projects, each tools, equipments, medical equipments should go to the market tests with the price of the market and change in every 5 years. Protection against change in law, which is now today, maybe it is the first step of the PPP projects. I totally agree with Engineer Atter that when the Egypt started the PPP without PPP law, and maybe without PPP unit as well. So, but today I think we have enough experience all over the world how a PPP project should follow on it. Because in Turkey as well, we don't have a PPP unit, like a centralized PPP unit, and we don't have a PPP framework, but the line ministries, different line ministries, have their own legal framework, and they are following their act and their legal framework, not the frame one. So the project implementation is more important than having the legal documents, thousands pages. And lenders sign direct agreement with the Minister of Health, Minister of Transportation. This is very important. Direct agreement means that, which is important for the steps for starting the PPP projects, it means that governments politically, they have a willing to support projects. It means that the banks has a direct agreement at the same time with the government, with the ministry, with the different ministries. No double counting for deductions and penalties, which is very technical, but it is important. And compensation and termination for loan equity. If a project goes to default, the government also stands by the compensation and termination. And ICC, International Arbitration and Dispute Resolution, today all foreign investors are looking or asking, requesting this arbitration process for developing economies, for the new started PPP projects, because it is not easy to regionally, to locally handling the legal process and this dispute resolution. So we need some expertise of judges and lawyers and legal experts to handling, to mitigate the risk. So this ICC international arbitration is not about, we are not trusting the market. It's about a solving or solution way of the conflict between the partners. Yes, these are the incentives. So which incentives Turkish government provided? One is revenue guarantee. This you can imagine, revenue guarantee is one of the important part of successful PPP projects, especially for available payment. So the revenue guarantee means that your project become a bankable project in the beginning of the design. The second one is step-in right. Today we were discussing with our colleagues during the coffee break, but step-in right means that the banks, the lenders have the right to step in the project if something goes wrong. So, which is very important because, you know, let's compare an EPC, which is traditional procurement models, and the PPP. In EPC, as the government, you are the owner of the work. You are tendering, you are paying, you are auditing, you are doing everything. But in PPP, the money comes from the banks, which means that banks has also some rights to protect their rights. And also, they would like to audit, monitor the process of implementation of the construction and providing the delivery services. Let's give an example from Turkey. For example, healthcare, because 19 different services, the private sector has bearing these risks, which is very complicated, sophisticated. And if something happens daily wrong, the banks warn to the company first, you are going not in a good way. You should be really consider that you should give a good public services. If this company steals, not providing a good services, and then the banks, the lenders, warn to the government. Okay, just 1 month we will warn you as well. 3 months consecutively, if the problems occur still on the ground, it means that government should negotiate with the banks in terms of step-in right. So it means that the lenders have the right to change the SPV and the companies, which is amazing models for controlling the public services quality, because always PPP should increase the quality of public services. That assumption, so somehow in Turkey the government decided to be backbone for the PPP project. So it's a debt assumption means a treasury guarantee of the government. Some projects in Turkey we have that assumption. Some big and strategic, for example, Istanbul Grand Airport. That was a very strategic project, and the government wanted it, and they provided the debt guarantee to the bank. Incentives, tax incentives. There are some tax incentives, as you know. One is the import tax. During the construction, it was incentivized, the import tax or the VAT tax during the construction. And some projects also in the implementation phase, they have the VAT incentives as well. And the land, which is very similar to Egyptian experience, like a land free for the projects. And what is important for land, I think, I liked Engineer Attar's notes that it's free and without any problem. It doesn't mean I am leaving a ground for you for a hospital or school or a bridge or a tunnel. No, there should be the permission and the other license. It should be ready for the construction at that time. When the private sector get the land, it should be starting for the construction. This is very important. And this is a very nice diagram how Turkish government stands the payment process, which is starting working capital budget This is in healthcare project. Working capital budget means that the hospital is generating their own money. And the first part of loan is coming from the working capital budget from the hospital. But probably for the investment and the all operational cost, it will not enough. And then it goes to the, you can see, Ministry of Health. So Ministry of Health is supporting the budget and at the second stage to pay the loan. If it is not enough, I mean the part of Ministry of Health budget is not enough, the third stage is the social insurance company, which is a government company. So at the third stage, so they are also supporting the payment. And if it is not enough, it goes to the central budget and the Ministry of Finance. And at the end of this backbone, if those revenues, which means that it's a big problem for a project, those different revenue streams are not enough to fulfill the loans, it means there is a debt guarantee from the treasury and they are paying. This is a very good backbone. You can see how a payment process should be, structured in a very strong backbone to attract the finance. But luckily, we don't have these steps today. But this should be in the beginning of the project during the structuring of financial attraction. And challenges faced. Macroeconomic volatility, currency risk and inflation, which is very similar. In developing economies, this is very similar. We have such kind of problems. Always volatilization of the hard currency and the low depreciation of the local currency. This is a big problem. It was, I was telling in the morning, it was started with $1 is 10 Turkish lira, now it's a 40 Turkish lira. So the government should consider this volatilization in Turkey. It was a big problem. Demand risk and optimistic traffic projection. This is very important. I think now one of the biggest problem in developing economies or the countries who are starting with the PPP is optimism bias for both sides. The public means that we can do everything. The private side, we should take this tender. So there is an optimism bias in the air. But when the tender finalized, when the signature signed, and they actually stepped on the ground at real life, this is not easy. The contract, the negotiation, construction, finding the proper money, bankable project, it's not easy. So optimistic traffic projections normally is a big problem, or optimistic, for example, is water cubic meters daily, annually. So these kind of expectation assumptions are very, very big problem. Public resistance, perception of privatization in our country, in Turkey as well. Privatization, it's not a good verb for the people, for the society. So, but unfortunately, PPPs are never be a privatization. You never transfer the ownership of the assets. You are just giving the use of rights, or you are working with the private party. So what I would like to tell, this is one of the big mistakes that we did in Turkey. We didn't start to explain the models, the project, the process, the construction from the beginning to the society. Which it means, for example, today, we are living in a digital social media era. So if you are starting a new project from the beginning, from the construction, try to explain the people, the society, what is happening, what it means, PPP. What I am telling this one, in Turkey, after the project, those are successful projects that I shared you, but there is a very, very huge and very strong critics on the society in Turkey. You can see from the media. So these are very, very expensive. Why we are paying for the guarantee that the people, doesn't use it. The problem is, the governments after the project, they try to convince the people that the projects are good. But if you start at the beginning, it means you will inform the PPP, not try to convince the people. So not convincing, but sharing, informing the people that they will use, which we use in UN jargon is the people first PPP. Really, at the end of the days, those infrastructure, I mean the public services, will go to people, even a wastewater treatment or highway or healthcare. So try to inform from the beginning that what is happening. And affordability, sometimes in developing economies, we don't consider this affordability. We are calculating because at the end of this is a financial sheet. So you are calculating, you are multiplying, you are dividing the Excel sheets to find the proper finance, and you can forget the affordability means that how a person, it's not bear the prices, how a person would like to pay for a highway, how a people would like to pay for a tunnel or bridge for a wastewater treatment cubic meters. So the affordability is another. And awareness issue, I just try to tell. Crisis, yes, COVID-19 was a real stress test, especially for the airports, highway, transportation projects. It was a big problem, and you know it was not allowed to the aviation, so everybody was expected what will happen to airport and the transportation guarantees, because you know it was not allowed to go to the streets. So the government stand on the projects, they paid this one, and it was not a forced measure. So it was very important. It's a partnership. In the morning, for the opening speech, Ziad says, you know, partnership is more important, part of the PPPs. So it was a partnership. When the crisis occurs, so nobody would like to project go to default. Even the bankers, lenders, public, private, so we should find the solution. Also, I would like to give an example from Turkish PPP healthcare projects. Now, there is a committee, consistent committee, 3 from the private, 3 from the public. They are gathering daily. So daily discussing the problems. Think about 1,000 beds hospitals, and the private sector is operating. So daily they are gathering, 3 plus 3, and weekly the chair of the hospitals also participating, join to this committee. And 15 days, if they cannot solve, this committee cannot solve with the chair of the hospitals as well, they are forwarding these topics to the Minister of Health to solve. This is consistent structure that when a problem occurs, how we can solve. So we are not blaming the other side, because at the end of the day, you are delivering a public service in a healthcare. So focusing on the solution mechanism from the beginning, I think experience replicating is very important in that part of PPPs. And lessons learned, stakeholder management, we talk about. I think now it's not a problem. Maybe 15 years ago, we want the bridge, tunnel that the people doesn't need. But today the needs are increasing, sustainability, resilience, and the national budgets have a problem. The last report of IMF, globally, the national budgets, the debt cycle reached $100 trillion globally. And the needs also, by 2040, the needs, infrastructure needs, reached $100 trillion. So we need the private finance. We need to private finance, private partners to fulfill these gaps and the public services. Institutional capacity, no need to say. You can see the administrative staff's capacities to understand the PPP. It is not a game. This is a partnership. So the capacity building, consistent capacity building is still very important for project preparation as well. As I shared with you, 80% of PPP projects in Africa, unfortunately, cannot pass the first phase. So only 20%. So the feasibility studies, trying to make bankable PPP projects, these are the most important part. So if you have enough skills, you can develop, you can improve right and bankable projects. Legal framework we discuss a lot. Realistic determination of risks. One side is optimism bias, everybody is very optimistic. Other side, everybody is pessimistic. So here, I cannot count, but I think we have here 60%. If I ask you, please tell me a risk for a transportation projects, I think we can reach 1,000 risks from 60%, but maybe these are not realistic. So to develop the right project, right structure, we should all the lawyers, financial technicals experts, policymakers, private persons, and the IFIs, MDBs, we should be very, very, very careful to determine the realistic risks. Correct scale of projects, as the private sector today during the panel, they told, scale is very important for projects. And supervision monitoring, this is also very important because it is not one-time game. It's a process, 10 years, 15 years process. We need a very, very sharply dedicated, defined auditing systems. Planning and advance, Engineer Rattar told the pipeline. Pipeline is very important. So you cannot start with one or two projects, a pipeline that it sees your seriousness and you're eager to have private finance. And risk allocation. Risk allocation, I would like to finalize with risk allocation. This is very important. Again, I want to share a Turkish experience as well. 15 years ago, when we started healthcare projects, in Turkey, our hospitals more than 1,000 beds, 2,000, even 3,000. In Istanbul, we have 3,000 beds. And in Istanbul, Çamsakura, PPP hospitals, daily 100,000 people comes and go to the hospitals, 100,000 daily. What it means, it's like a small city, 100,000. And the government, the officials, didn't expect such kind of a big crowd will come to the hospitals and go out. Now you know, in the hospital, we have 3 Starbucks, like a shopping mall. 100,000 comes and go out. It means there is a very significant revenue generating from the commercial issues. But unfortunately, the government is not getting any part from this commercial revenue, which is risk allocation. We are paying for the public services, but also government. It is not a critics. 15 years ago, we couldn't, imagine what will happen. So, but today, the second promotion, I think more refunding, including public revenue, how the risk allocated between the partners. Normally what we say, the risk should be, distributed, who will best manage it? But today, I think it should be managed together, and the government can generate revenue from the projects itself. And yes, for the future in Turkey, we would like to focus more on social sectors and smart infrastructure. Smart infrastructure means that using AI. Last week when I was in Belgrade for the UN meeting, I told them there are 2 very big challenges in front of us. One is the climate change. The second one is the technological improvement. So the government should be ready against 2 different parts. One is climate and the other is technology. Climate, the government should, for the projects, should be enabler. So the government, show the way, shed light on the projects. But for the technological improvement, I think the government should be not the initiator, enabler. For the climate, should be initiator. They will define which projects the government will need. And this is very important, using the AI and technology and allowing the private sector improve some project for public services in the future. Capital markets and foster public dialogue. This is stakeholder engagement, which will be the very, very important in the near future, because the knowledge, the data is floating very, very fast. And everybody knows what is good, everybody knows what is bad in terms of improving public services and infrastructure. I would like to conclude my presentation again. There is a very big competition developing the infrastructure projects. The money money holders, lenders, IFIs, MDBs, even MDBs, will find the projects, right projects all over the world. So it's a compete. If you would like to work with MDBs and the investors, we should develop our right and bankable projects. So it means that every part should make their own homework, not blaming the others or they are not coming politically. So I think there are lots of homework to do. Experts, financials, IFIs, MDBs, policymakers. So it's a stakeholder management. So we should focus on partnership, not the project. So if any question, maybe one or two, I will be very happy to answer very quickly if you would like to raise. Yes, engineer.
Which is something between $2 to $3 billion. And the project duration was about 10 years. So what was the financial structure that the private sector can pay back his capex and get his profit on this short term? So there should be a financial structure that would secure that. Was it an availability payment or it was an availability payment?
The question is very short construction and the operation time, and $2 billion and 10 years including construction, how it becomes a bankable. It's more availability payment, but based on user fee. So the government is calculating the price from the user numbers. It's not a fixed payment to the company, to the bank. So it's a mix, but maybe 70% is coming like an availability payment based on user fee calculation. So why, then you can ask why this kind of projects as a PPP rather than EPC? Because mostly 70% you are paying, you can make an EPC. Yes, the service and the government needs, it was a strategic because it's a northern corridor. So it's like a mobility, as in the morning I try to tell, it's not a highway, it's a mobility tool for the government, which is increasing the trade flow and which is increasing the economic growth. Thank you very much and have a good lunch, Aydin.
كل الشكر والتقدير للدكتور أيوب فورال أيدين رئيس مجلس الإدارة مركز التميز لمشروعات الشراكة في اسطنبول الجمهورية التركية. حضورنا الكريم نذكر بأن هناك QR على الشاشة موجود سوف يحوي بإذن الله جميع المحاضرات والحلقات النقاشية والمواد العلمية عبر قناة اليوتيوب الخاصة بشركة رازن إيفنتس.